The screen flickered to life across 100,000 worlds. The distress signal had overridden civilian networks, breaking through military encryptions, bypassing entertainment feeds and commercial broadcasts. It was raw, unfiltered, and inescapable. At first, it was just static. Then, a dim, flickering light. A man's face, bruised, bloody, stared into the lens. He coughed, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The background was chaos, flickering emergency lights, the distant rumble of collapsing metal, the distant screams of the dying. "Is anyone out there?" His voice was hoarse, filled with something primal. Not desperation. Not fear. Something deeper. He shifted slightly, revealing the child in his arms. A little girl, no older than 6, her tiny form curled against his chest. Her golden hair was matted with dust and streaks of blood. His blood. She clung to him, her face pressed against his shoulder, whimpering softly. He adjusted the camera, his hand shaking. "If anyone hears this, my name is Lieutenant James Carter of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. Our colony on Draven's Hope is... it's gone." His voice cracked, just for a second. He swallowed hard, glancing down at his daughter. His arms tightened around her. The Krell. They came without warning. No demands. No mercy. We never stood a chance. A deep rumble shook the structure around him, and somewhere in the distance, something crumbled. The girl whimpered, her tiny fingers grasping at his tattered uniform. "Shh, baby. It's okay," he whispered, brushing a hand over her hair. He inhaled sharply, then forced himself to continue. "To anyone who can hear me. This isn't a plea for help. There's no one left to save." He shifted again, wincing, and the camera angle changed. Beyond him, the entrance to the bunker was caved in. No escape. "But if you're listening, if you're out there, I just want someone to know. We fought. We fought to the last." He gave a short, broken laugh. "Guess that's what humans do, huh?" His voice dropped lower. His next words were only for her. "Sweetheart, I need you to be strong now, okay?" "Daddy, I'm scared," she whispered. His breath hitched, and something inside him shattered. But he didn't let her see. Instead, he smiled, soft, reassuring, like fathers have done for their children since the beginning of time. "I know, baby. I know. But I've got you. Just close your eyes. Daddy's here." The camera caught his arms tightening around her, his lips pressing against her hair. Another tremor rocked the ruins, and the light flickered. Then the feed cut. For a moment, the galaxy was silent. Then the weeping began. The broadcast spread like wildfire across the galaxy. It was never meant to be seen by so many. A single human's final moments, a father's last comfort to his child, but it had broken past every firewall, overridden every network, forcing itself onto screens across 1,000 worlds. The Zalvarin homeworld, a place of cold logic and rigid hierarchy, was no exception. High Scholar Varek had dismissed it at first. Humans were an emotional species, prone to dramatics, to reckless self-sacrifice. Yet something in the man's voice had unsettled him. Now, hours later, he sat alone in his private chamber, watching the message for the third time. The flickering light. The dust-covered girl. The way Carter had tightened his hold on her, as if through sheer will alone, he could protect her from death itself. "Daddy, I'm scared." Varek had studied humans for years. Their adaptability, their stubbornness, their unpredictability. But he had never considered this. This quiet, unfathomable depth of something. He exhaled sharply and shut off the screen. Enough. It was not his concern. But across the stars, others did not look away. On the war-driven world of the Threx Dominion, hardened warriors sat in silence, their clawed hands curled into fists. These humans, these soft creatures they had dismissed as weak, did not beg. They did not plead. They simply held their dying children and whispered reassurances as death closed in. It was an honor they had not expected. On the diplomatic moon of Edris IV, a delegation of the Elysians, silver-skinned pacifists who had long advocated for neutrality, watched the footage with wet, glistening eyes. Their leader, High Voice Anessa, turned to her advisors. "We should have answered their distress calls," she murmured, her voice thick with regret. Some species turned their backs, pretending they had not seen. But others clenched their jaws, tightened their fists, and felt something unfamiliar creep into their bones. Shame. For the Krell, there was no shame. No guilt. Aboard their massive war cruisers, the highest-ranking warlords laughed at the humans' sorrow. Weak creatures, broken and defeated. Their deaths meant nothing. But they had made a mistake. They had not silenced humanity. They had only given them something to grieve. And in the cold void of space, even the stars knew, there is nothing more dangerous than a species with nothing left to lose. The galaxy braced for humanity's response. The question was not if they would strike back, but how. The humans did not weep openly. There were no grand declarations of vengeance. No desperate pleas for aid. Their leaders did not broadcast cries for justice. They simply prepared. Across the Terran colonies, factories burned bright through the night, churning out warships, weapons, and armor at a terrifying pace. Training camps overflowed with volunteers, their faces set in grim determination. On Luna, an admiral watched as a mother handed her teenage son a rifle. "You remember what your father taught you?" she asked, her voice steady. "Yes, ma'am," the boy said. She nodded once. "Then make him proud." The galaxy watched in uneasy silence. Then came the message. It was not sent through backchannels or diplomatic envoys. It did not beg for allies or demand reparations. It was simple, direct. A single human woman, standing in front of the burned ruins of Draven's Hope. No military uniform. No insignia. Just a civilian. Her voice was calm. "To the Krell Dominion," she said, "we do not ask for your mercy. We know there is none to be had." She paused, and when she spoke again, there was something colder in her tone. "But understand this, humanity remembers. We remember every child buried in the rubble. Every father who held his daughter as the world burned. Every life stolen." The message was broadcast across every system. Some races shuddered at the final words. "We do not ask you to fight for us. We do not ask you to take a side. But if you stand in our way, if you turn your backs on us," her eyes, dark with grief, burned into the camera, "we will remember that too." Silence. Then the feed cut. Across the stars, worlds whispered among themselves. Some turned away, unwilling to be part of what was coming. Others hesitated, watching, waiting. But in the dark halls of the Zalvaron Council, High Scholar Varek stood, his claws tightening against the wooden desk. For the first time in his life, he did not know what to do. Because he understood something now, something that chilled him to his core. The Krell had not crushed humanity. They had forged them. The Zalvaran Council chamber was silent. It had been hours since the human's message had spread across the stars, and still, no one spoke. The holographic image of the human woman had vanished, but her words remained. "We will remember." High Scholar Vurek had spent his entire life dismissing humans as a reckless, fragile species, foolish creatures that burned brightly but briefly. And yet, when he had watched that transmission, when he had looked into the woman's grief-hardened eyes, he had felt something he did not understand. Guilt. A low hum filled the chamber as Supreme Arbiter Karesh finally spoke. "This is not our war," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "It is regrettable, but the Krell are powerful. To interfere would be unwise." Vurek's mandibles tightened. "It was not their war either," he said, his voice quieter than he intended. "Until the Krell made it so." The Arbiter turned his piercing gaze toward him. "And what would you have us do? Throw our fleets into the flames for a species that would not do the same for us?" Vurek hesitated. That was the argument he had made in the past. The logical one. The safe one. But now, all he could see was that father's final moments, his whispered reassurances to his child even as the walls crumbled around them. Before he could answer, another voice broke the silence. "Not all of us seek to stand by." Vurek turned sharply. A group of younger counselors, ones who had spent years fascinated by humanity, studying their art, their music, their defiance, stood together, their faces set with quiet determination. "If we do nothing," one of them said, "we will prove the Krell right. That strength comes only from conquest. That mercy is weakness. That grief is meaningless." Vurek felt something shift inside him. A decision he had spent his entire life refusing to make. He turned back to the Arbiter, his voice firm. "We are not only scholars. We are a people of knowledge. And we have just learned something today." The Arbiter narrowed his eyes. "And what is that?" Varek inhaled slowly. Then, for the first time, he spoke not as a scholar, but as something more. That there are some things worth remembering. Across the stars, other species made their own choices. Some turned away, unwilling to risk their fragile peace. Others watched in silence, waiting for the first blow to fall. And somewhere, in the cold depths of space, the Krell Dominion laughed. They did not yet understand what they had done. But they would. The Krell never saw it coming. The Dominion fleet hung in orbit over Draven's Hope, their warcruisers basking in the remains of their conquest. Smoke still curled from the ruins below. The air was thick with the stench of burned metal and flesh. To them, this world was already dead. The humans had been broken. Or so they thought. Then the first ship dropped from FTL. A single Terran dreadnought, its hull blackened, its engines burning like dying stars. It did not broadcast a warning. It did not demand surrender. It simply opened fire. The first Krell warship split apart under the barrage, its shields peeling away like brittle glass. The second never even had a chance to turn. Across the Dominion fleet, alarms blared as human warships surged from the void, flanking, striking, cutting through their ranks with terrifying precision. It was not a battle. It was a reckoning. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Iron Vow, Admiral Reynolds stood with hands clasped behind his back, his face carved from stone. "No prisoners," he ordered. "They didn't take any of ours." And so the humans fought. They did not fight for territory. They did not fight for power. They fought for the voices that had been silenced. For the father who had held his daughter. For the homes turned to ash. For memory. The Krell panicked. They had crushed a human colony before. They had killed millions. But they had never seen humans like this, cold, calculated, unstoppable. A Krell captain snarled over the comms, desperation creeping into his voice. "We concede the system. Call off your..." His transmission cut out as a railgun round tore through his vessel. The humans did not care for surrender. Then, as the last Krell battleship burned, the second wave arrived. Not human. Zalvaran warships. Threxian dreadnoughts. Even a handful of Elysian support cruisers. The galaxy had made its choice. On the bridge of his vessel, High Scholar Varek stood watching as the Krell's forces disintegrated. He had made his choice as well. "Human Admiral," he transmitted. "The Zalvaran stand with you." There was silence on the line. Then Reynolds' voice came through, low, steady. "We remember. The last Krell ship tried to flee. It didn't make it. When the fires of battle dimmed, when the last wreckage drifted into the void, the stars bore witness to something new. A galaxy that had finally learned what it meant to grieve. And what it meant to fight.